I'm 38, married for 12 years, 2 kids, and by all appearances, I had a normal life. My wife, let's call her Elle, was always active, work, volunteering, friends, but we had a solid routine. Mornings were rushed but predictable, weekends full of soccer games and grocery runs. I thought I knew her, thought we had a good marriage. Life felt fine. I never suspected she was unhappy. She'd joke about stress at work, complain about tension in her shoulders, and I'd nod, maybe suggest yoga or a weekend getaway. I trusted her implicitly. We weren't perfect, but nothing that felt threatening. We laughed, argued lightly, made love, and lived quietly in our suburban bubble. Looking back, I can see how my trust became my blind spot. I thought, we know each other, and assumed no one could come between us. But I was naive, and I didn't notice the small things: her extra time at the gym, disappearing texts, quiet phone calls that ended when I walked in. It started innocently enough. Elle complained constantly about tension in her neck and shoulders. I suggested a massage. She laughed it off, saying she didn't want to spend money. Then she mentioned a new therapist at a nearby spa, someone her coworker recommended. I shrugged. Fine, she deserves a break, I thought. She went once, came back glowing, talking about how amazing it felt to just relax. I thought it was just self-care. But she started going more often, every week, sometimes twice. I'd ask casually about it. She'd laugh it off. He really knows what he's doing. I noticed her phone would buzz when I was around, and she'd excuse herself quickly. Small things, a text from M, which I assumed was a client or coworker. I never snooped. Again, I trusted her. Then came the first real warning sign. One Saturday morning, I peeked into her calendar while she was in the shower. Her massage appointments were longer than she told me. And sometimes she'd schedule them at odd hours, not at the spa but at a private office. I told myself I was overreacting. The first real suspicion hit me about 2 months later. Elle seemed distracted, even after her massages. She'd come home, smile, hug me, but her mind was somewhere else. I asked what was wrong. She'd say nothing. I felt a pit in my stomach. Then came a moment I can't erase. I borrowed her phone to check something about the kids' school schedule. A message popped up from M. Can't wait to see you later. Last night was amazing. My heart froze. I stared at it, then checked the rest of the conversation. The messages were explicit: kisses, plans, jokes, completely personal. I don't know why I didn't confront her immediately. Maybe denial. Maybe fear. My mind raced. This can't be real. She wouldn't do that. Maybe it's a mistake. But the texts were consistent, recent, and unmistakable. I slipped the phone back without a sound. Elle came out of the shower, humming, and asked if I was okay. I forced a smile. I felt sick, betrayed, and dizzy. That was the first time I realized something in my marriage had changed, something irreversibly. I spent days in a daze. Every interaction with Elle felt loaded. I watched her, listened to her, trying to catch any hint, any slip. I started noticing little things I had ignored before: the way she'd linger over texts, how she suddenly cared about what to wear, how her laughter sounded different, lighter, secretive. I confronted myself first. Am I imagining this? Am I reading too much into it? But deep down I knew. There was a betrayal hiding behind her smile. I felt a mix of fear and rage, but I had to be careful. I wasn't ready for confrontation yet. Meanwhile, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it wasn't what it looked like. Maybe it was emotional attachment only. I even tried to convince myself that everyone deserves an escape from stress, even a secret one. But denial only made the eventual confrontation worse. Each massage, each text, each smile became a dagger I carried silently. The truth was right in front of me, and I couldn't unsee it. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. One night, after the kids were asleep, I asked her casually, trying to sound normal. So, how's your therapist? She laughed, flippant. He's great. Really knows how to work out the tension. I pressed further, voice tight. You go there a lot, right? More than you mentioned? Her face went pale, like she'd been caught without realizing it. She stammered, tried to joke it off, but I could see her guilt. My hands were shaking, heart hammering. I asked bluntly, Are you seeing him in any other way? Tears welled up, her lips quivering. Yes, she whispered, voice breaking. I didn't mean for it to happen. I felt, I don't know, lonely, stressed, and it just happened. I'm sorry. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, cry, throw something, and curl into myself all at once. I felt like I'd been living next to a stranger for years. The woman I loved, trusted, shared my life with, had betrayed me in the most intimate way. I remember the room spinning. I felt a combination of fury, despair, and disbelief. I wanted to hit her, but my body froze. My mind screamed, Why? How? When? I asked the questions aloud, trembling. She had answers, but they sounded hollow, rehearsed, like she'd already justified it in her own head. She begged me to understand. She cried, said she felt terrible, said she never wanted to hurt me. I couldn't listen. Every word felt like salt on an open wound. I wanted to leave, to escape, but I was rooted there, trapped in my own heartbreak. I spent the night pacing, staring at walls, feeling my life unravel. The betrayal didn't feel like just a mistake, it felt like a fracture in reality. The home I built, the family I loved, suddenly seemed fragile, brittle, impossible to trust. Even the next morning, everything was quiet. Elle was apologetic, but I couldn't look at her without seeing the truth in her eyes. I realized our marriage had changed forever. Confrontation was inevitable. I had to know everything. I asked for details, the first time, how long it had lasted, whether he knew about me. She admitted it had been ongoing for 3 months. Every session, professional, on the surface. But eventually they crossed the line, shared kisses, texts, even a few nights together. I couldn't process it. I shouted, cried, accused. She tried to explain, said she felt. Ignored, overlooked, stressed. I hated the way she used excuses, hated myself for letting it get that far, hated that my mind still wanted to understand instead of shutting down entirely. I remember one heated moment, she reached for my hand, and I yanked it away. How could you do this to me? To us? To the kids? Her tears streamed, but I saw no comfort, only guilt and shame. That guilt felt like salt in my veins. It didn't help me, only reminded me of the betrayal. Internally, I felt like I was splitting. I loved her, yes, but anger and hatred were clawing at me. I questioned every memory, the way she hugged me, the whispered goodnights, the casual laughter. Was it real? Had she been faking it all? I felt guilty, too. Guilt that I hadn't noticed the signs, that I hadn't made her feel seen, that maybe, somehow, I had failed. But mostly, it was betrayal, deep, raw, gnawing. Every thought of them together made me sick, like my own home had been invaded. Sleep became impossible. I replayed conversations, texts, massages, every smile, every touch. The line between love and pain blurred until I didn't know what I was allowed to feel. Every day was heavy, every interaction strained. Even small things, kids' laughter, grocery runs, dishes, reminded me of what had been broken. I felt powerless, trapped in a life I no longer recognized. The fallout was immediate. Trust evaporated. I couldn't look at her without suspicion. I started checking her phone, emails, calendar. Every beep, every vibration made me tense. I hated myself for spying, but I couldn't stop. Family life became a performance. I smiled at the kids, helped with homework, kissed them goodnight, but inside, I was a volcano of emotions. I wanted to scream at Elle, make her feel even a fraction of the pain she caused, but I also feared destroying the kids' world completely. Friends noticed a change. I became quieter, withdrawn, avoidant. I lied about feeling unwell or tired, just to hide the storm inside. People asked why I seemed distant. I didn't have answers. How could I explain that my spouse had slept with our massage therapist, that my world had collapsed overnight? The betrayal affected everything: my concentration at work, my appetite, even my self-esteem. I questioned my judgment, my attractiveness, my worth. We tried counseling. I insisted. Elle agreed. The first session was a disaster. Sitting across from a stranger and recounting her infidelity felt surreal. I couldn't speak without choking. She tried to answer questions honestly, but it felt rehearsed. I wanted raw truth, tears, confession, but what I got was polite remorse. I didn't know if I could forgive her. Part of me wanted to leave immediately. Part of me wanted to cling, to fix, to pretend this never happened. But every session reopened wounds. Every mention of him, name, place, text, was a fresh stab. At home, silence became normal. We passed each other in the hallway, avoided eye contact, tried to maintain routines for the kids. But the distance between us was tangible. I realized that even if we stayed together, the intimacy we once had was gone. I began imagining a life without her, but the thought terrified me. She was my family, my home, my history, and also the person who hurt me the most. After a few months, the reality sank in. Our marriage wasn't broken by a single act. It was broken by the invisible, creeping shift of trust. I couldn't stop thinking about him, the massage therapist. His name, his face, the way she described him laughing, touching her hands, it haunted me. Every mention of my therapist felt like a dagger twisting. Arguments became almost ritualistic. I'd ask questions, she'd answer, sometimes crying, sometimes defensive. I'd rage, slam doors, storm out. The kids were around sometimes. I hated that they saw even a fraction of my pain. Guilt settled alongside heartbreak. I felt like a hostage in my own life, trapped by love, by responsibility, by memories that refused to leave. Even when I tried to sleep, images of them together invaded my dreams. Waking up, I'd stare at the ceiling, chest tight, stomach in knots. I realized that betrayal isn't just emotional, it becomes physical, in your bones, your pulse, your entire being. I tried to imagine forgiveness, but it felt impossible. I wanted to forgive her for my own sanity, for the sake of the kids, but every time I looked at her, I saw him. I began to distance myself emotionally, shutting down, going through the motions. The small moments, dinner, bedtime, school drop-offs, felt mechanical. We separated temporarily. I moved into the guest room, took long walks, slept on the couch sometimes. Elle visited the kids, apologized repeatedly, but her presence reminded me of the lie, the intimacy she'd shared with someone else. I realized love alone couldn't fix this. Trust, once shattered, is almost impossible to repair. Even as she begged, promised change, and went to therapy, my mind recoiled. My heart wanted her, my brain screamed leave. It was exhausting. Every decision felt like a battle between hope and self-preservation. Eventually, we attempted a cautious reconciliation. We agreed on boundaries, phone transparency, no more massages, regular counseling. Elle seemed genuinely remorseful, and I wanted to believe her. I tried to rebuild small things, sharing meals, watching a movie together, laughing at something trivial. But nothing felt the same. Every touch, every smile, was a reminder. I couldn't shake the image of her with him, couldn't unhear her whispers, couldn't erase the betrayal. Even when we were intimate again, I felt detached, numb, watching myself go through motions. I realized that forgiveness doesn't erase pain, it just coexists with it. And trust, even if partially restored, leaves permanent cracks. I started to accept that life moves forward, but scars remain. Some nights I still cry quietly, thinking about what we lost and what we can never get back. The consequences rippled through everything. Family dinners were quieter, friends noticed a distance. My confidence eroded. I doubted myself constantly. Work suffered, concentration gone, headaches constant. Even mundane interactions with strangers felt tinted with suspicion. The kids adapted faster than I did. They didn't understand the magnitude of betrayal, only that mommy and daddy weren't the same. Watching them, I felt guilt and heartbreak combined. I wanted to shield them, but I couldn't shield myself. I also realized how alone I felt. Even friends who tried to comfort me didn't fully grasp the depth of this. The shame, the humiliation, the vulnerability, it's not something you can casually talk about. I became someone I barely recognized, cautious, defensive, guarded, carrying emotional debris everywhere I went. Now, years later, we're still together, technically. But the intimacy, the ease, the trust, we'll never get it back. Elle is repentant. I've forgiven enough to live day to day, but the pain lingers. I've learned that love can coexist with betrayal, but it will never erase it. I think about the small moments before the discovery, how easily they could have stayed normal, how fragile trust is, how quickly life can change. I warn myself, constantly, to stay vigilant, to pay attention, to never take closeness for granted. If I could tell anyone anything, it's this: betrayal doesn't just hurt. It transforms you, changes your instincts, rewires your heart. And sometimes you survive, but you carry the fracture forever. I'm still healing. Some days are easier, some are unbearable. But I know one truth: once the line is crossed, the world you knew is gone, even if the people you love remain.